Some of us are collectors of fine goods. We like having something tangible, the things that we love. Some of us spend an entire lifetime building those collections, hoping that one day it might bring us joy. And maybe, if we're lucky, couple of monies, couple of shekels, I guess. Then you reach the end of your life and it's finally time to cash in on your collection. It's time to find out what a lifetime of collecting is actually worth. But wait! Imagine this, it gets stolen right out from underneath you by some evil people. Some horrid beasts, I should say. And not only that, but you're dying and your kids and your grandkids should see a scent of what should have been theirs, but they don't because somebody took it. Now that's a fictional story that I just made up just now, but it's based on a real scandal, the Bricks and Minifigs scandal of the last few weeks, and it is getting crazier every single day, and I might get sued for even talking about it. And yes, I am suicidal. Everybody always comments, "Who's not suicidal?" I am, bro. I am. This nightmare collector scenario is more or less what the Bricks and Minifigs franchise did to Ed Mansell and his son Brian in Kaiser, Oregon. And help for them came from the most unlikely place imaginable, a YouTuber named Reckless Ben, who has done a ton of deep dives.
So basically my friend said that you guys have some of his Legos, I think, and he told me to come here and see if I could pick them up.
He's a very talented YouTuber and has essentially started an entire movement around that town, and now there's people speaking at council in regard to the police there. I mean, there is a lot to unpack with this whole scenario, scandal, whatever you want to call it. Drama? Come on, man.
Our police department in March went on a crusade against an individual, and he now has legal rights to sue this city.
By now you've probably caught some version of the story, but it's finally winding toward an end, or at least it's developing a little bit slower. So I'll give you a very brief 30,000 foot angle so we can align on our swim lanes here, all in one go. This is a story about Legos that somehow turns into a story about corruption, organized crime accusations, police brutality, a man fleeing to Mexico, threats of planted drugs, and someone quietly losing their place in their own church. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons. And it all starts with a Lego collection. So, who are the Mansells? Ed Mansell is 83 years old, and over about the last 15 years, he built something genuinely staggering. 780 Lego sets and more than 1,200 minifigures. The family puts its value somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. Now Ed has had cancer for a little while, and what he wanted was simple. He wanted to sell the collection, put his grandkids through college, and leave them something. So he handed the entire collection to his son Brian to sell. Brian was a working musician, or is a working musician, an audio engineer and producer, and now for the foreseeable future, he's instead going to be a man trying to fight to get his dying father's Legos back, because that is where all of this fell apart. So, what exactly happened with the collection? How did all of this fall apart in the first place? Brian took the collection to their local Bricks and Minifigs, which is a national chain that buys, sells, and trades used Legos in Kaiser, Oregon, just outside of Salem. They put the collection up on consignment. And a consignment agreement is a very standard and normal form of sale for businesses. Lots of antique stores use them. Anything where someone wants to sell something and they're not sure exactly where to do it, that's when consignment comes up. The store sells the stuff for you, then the store takes a cut, and until it sells, it stays your property. Obviously, the owners of the B&M franchise at the time of the consignment was a couple named Crystal Law and Ben Gorman.
I'm Crystal, also go by Chris.
I'm Benjamin, not Reckless Ben, the YouTube documentarian. I'm Benjamin Gorman, the novelist. We co-owned the franchise.
They signed off on this massive epic collection because their franchise contract explicitly allowed consignment for them. And that is a very important detail, much like the price. It matters later as well. Crystal and Ben had co-bought the franchise back in 2023, with Crystal running the store day to day as a manager, and Ben worked mostly as a novelist and on his publishing work, with some of it being pointed enough to make their lives complicated in the current political climate in the area that they live in. And it had them planning a move to Spain. They told B&M Corporate that they intended on eventually leaving, and Corporate seemed fine with that. But it turns out Corporate was not fine with it. Corporate was already planning to take the store for themselves. And remember, there's between $60,000 and $200,000 of consigned Legos from one guy in the store. Now, it happened at night. A man named Brandon Best showed up demanding the keys. Corporate on the phone, the takeover suddenly happening right now.
They understood there was a large collection on consignment and acknowledged they were taking that over.
And another thing to remember is Brandon's name, because he keeps coming back. That night, on that very footage, Best and a corporate rep named Kai McAllister are told the store is holding a massive consignment that belongs to one man, Brian Mansell, and that he has to be paid. Both of them agree to that consignment liability on camera and to take on the business and the consignment that all comes with it.
And because taking on the business, he takes on all that consignment liability.
On camera. And also remember that, because Bricks and Minifigs is about to spend quite a while pretending that it just didn't really ever happen. Or happen, I guess, if you're not an idiot. I said happened. When Crystal and Ben tried to fight the takeover, the message was blunt.
That we could fight them, but they would drag it out and make it so expensive we would be putting ourselves into a whole lot of shit. Their words.
The classic legal shakedown. It happens all the time, unfortunately, in small businesses, and it is the way that a large group of people do business in the United States of America.
If you fight this, then you're putting yourself into a whole lot of shit. It sounds like a threat, and I can acknowledge you feeling that, because in a way it is.
I do not understand it, and I think that it is fundamentally evil to, instead of working together, just using your big wallet to, it's f***ed up and it's very evil. This whole thing is f***ed up and evil. But Kai McAllister basically admitted that if it sounded like a threat, it was one. And McAllister, by the way, had a LinkedIn profile at the time that has since been wiped. There is tons of backtracking being done and the story is consistently changing. And by the time that this comes out, there will have been a week between its release and me recording it, and I'm sure I will add things to it and change things around because of how constantly the story is developing, even though it's basically over because Reckless Ben is no longer legally allowed to even talk about the mystery company.
They sent court papers to my email, which I guess a judge approved for them that this was a valid form of service. And so now that I'm officially served, I cannot even mention this company or I will be in jail and everything.
So anyways, the Gormans never made their move to Spain. The franchise was simply gone. And from there, Bricks and Minifigs would go on to flatly deny that they even allow consignments, despite it being written into their own contract and despite the fact that they had publicly advertised this exact collection sitting in their store, which is f***ed up. For Crystal and Ben, the only play left was to back a legal fight and try to get Brian's collection counted as damages because somebody was legally on the hook to pay him back, obviously.
We believe the best way to get Brian compensated is to win our lawsuit and include the full value of his collection in the damages so that he can then be compensated.
So Brian started work to get back his collection. He sent the new owners of the franchise a formal termination letter of the consignment, putting them on notice that these sets were his. Then he had a friend of his go into the store and buy one of those sets to test them, basically, right after he put the store on notice and told them not to sell any of the sets that were his, which is about as clean of proof as it gets that they sold a set that was never theirs to sell, which is stealing, as far as I'm aware. But I am not a lawyer, nor am I smart. But by now, the store had two new owners installed by corporate. Brandon Best, this guy, the keys guy, and a man named Joshua Johnson. Both of them looked Brian in the eye and said they had nothing of his. No Legos, nothing. Even though his friend just came in, bought one of Brian's sets, and walked out the front door. As you can probably imagine, Brian was handed the exact same line that the previous owners of the franchise got, that court will cost you more than it's worth, so just eat the loss. He emailed the CEO of Lego itself for help with no response, and at the end of his rope, reaching out anywhere he could, the place that finally answered was a YouTuber named Reckless Ben. Now, who is Reckless Ben?
It's a little strange. This is the first time someone's ever criticized me about the investigative work I do. Normally people like it because I'm taking down things like Scientology or evil cults.
His real name is Benjamin Paul Schneider, a 30-year-old filmmaker, entrepreneur, professional slackliner. If you don't know what slacklining is, it's scary. This guy's crazy and so reckless. Ben grew up in Ohio, went to the University of Cincinnati, and got popular enough online for slacklining that he dropped out of engineering school 3 years in, and in 2019 he landed his first real notoriety by stealing an unverified Banksy.
I'll be showing you how to steal a Banksy painting. Okay, I mean, it's not really a Banksy painting. Everyone thinks it's a Banksy painting, so Same thing. Step 1, create a fake eBay auction and fake approval from Banksy to pick it up.
I'm here to pick up a painting of mine.
And that's Ben's whole brand. He's a gonzo journalist. He doesn't report on a story so much as he climbs inside of it and then just it. He becomes part of it while it's happening. And before any of this, he was very well known for 2 investigations. One into McCamey Manor, the extreme haunted house that people signed legal waivers to survive.
This haunted house is McCamey Manor.
McCamey Manor. It's called the most extreme haunted house in America.
Boom, just applied for McCamey Manor.
That's right.
And his expose of a horror film creep who went by Lucifer Valentine.
This is a huge mystery on the internet that has still never been solved because the director is completely anonymous. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes to solve it.
I genuinely do not recommend looking into the second one, but Ben unmasked him as a successful Emmy-winning editor named Sean Federchuk. Either way, there's a pattern there. What Ben does is run straight at things that most people sort of run away from. And Brian asked for help. Ben thought it was interesting enough, so he went and helped and answered. And Ben helps the only way he knows how, which is loud. In helping, he runs lottery-style raffles. He registers a fake rival company called We Steal From Old People.
So this video is sponsored by We Steal From Old People, and you can visit us at www.westealfromoldpeople.com. We're actually at We Steal From Old People's headquarters right now. This is our office.
He launches a grievance campaign against the store. He tricks the staff into signing consent form, and he spins up an actual Lego cult to try to turn the employees against their own bosses. He pickets the place in his underwear, which is pretty hilarious. And the goal of all this, seems like, is to get Bricks Minifigs corporate to sue him, so he gets hauled into court for free and can finally put the theft allegations in front of a judge. It's a very interesting way to handle a situation like this, and probably the only way that would have any movement whatsoever. Because even in spite of that, in spite of everything that's happened, which is a lot more than we've talked about right now, it gets way worse, they're still not backing down, and they're still threatening people, and the seams are just coming apart. But either way, the stunts don't crack corporate. Ben gets clever. He and Brian sit down with CEO Ammon McNeff, who offers to return the sets on one condition, that Mansell has to apologize. They refuse. So Ben builds a workaround. Oregon's small claims caps each case at 10 grand, which is nowhere near the collection's value, so he has himself and about 10 friends each buy roughly $10,000 of Brian's sets, turning them into 10 separate people who can each sue the store on their own in small claims court.
If 10 different people get their Legos stolen by Bricks and Minifigs, all 10 people can individually sue, and it turns out that that is actually not considered claim splitting.
Bricks and Minifigs never shows up to a single case, and Ben files for a default judgment, and the very next day, the Oregon store permanently shuts its doors, dodging the payout before he can collect a single cent.
Now, there's absolutely no way to hold this store liable for what they did.
So it's kind of a win, but it's a hollow win, because they didn't lose, they just disappeared. So Ben takes it to Deseret, Utah, where the actual owners live, to serve them directly. And this is where things really turn for the scary and the worst, because the moment he shows up, he starts getting accused of doctoring his own footage, and the police, the American Fork Police Department, American Fork being the Utah town that Johnson lives in, get called out on stalking and harassment.
Dude, the police just showed up. What the heck? Why are the police at his house?
Oh, there's another one, dude. 2 cop cars.
3 cop cars?
Oh my gosh. Cop cars.
Why is there 3 cop cars at his house?
We didn't even walk up to his house yet.
They side with Johnson almost instantly. Then Ben says he got pulled over and was accused of having heroin in his car, which matters because Ben Gorman had already warned him that this was the exact play, that corporate's people had floated planting heroin on him to make the whole problem disappear.
The police apparently got a call that we had heroin on us. After 2 hours of searching the car, obviously they found no drugs.
And this all escalated very fast. Ben's Airbnb was raided on a warrant with the kind of force that you reserve for someone actually dangerous, and he and 4 friends are hauled in. Only Ben stays. He spends days locked up, with Ben's shoulder getting dislocated in the middle of it. What is the justification of the warrant? Bricks and Minifigs claimed that Ben had actually stolen the Legos, and a judge signed it, by the way.
The reason they were searching our house was, it says, there is now certain property or evidence described as any stolen merchandise, specifically Lego merchandise. evidence of illegal conduct on us that we stole the Legos.
And this is the point in which Bricks and Minifigs starts trying to save itself. On May 21st, 2026, corporate posts a statement putting distance between itself and Johnson and Best, announcing that it does not condone exploiting anyone, especially older or vulnerable people. That is their very bolded line that they're really trying to get across, and it's aimed at a guy who just slapped "We steal from old people" on a sign with their actual name underneath. So it's like a direct response, kind of. And their actual defense is that corporate never authorized the consignment agreement, except that they accepted it on camera. But I guess when you say something, it's not real. When you use words, it's not real. You have to write it down for it to be real, because it's too easy to just change your mind. And their backup defense is that the items aren't even in the store anymore, and that whatever they could identify as Brian's was offered back to him, but he refused because he wouldn't apologize. So, think about that for a moment, I guess. Bricks and Minifigs wanted an apology for breaking the law and then sicking the cops on the person serving them papers. That's kind of how it seems. I don't know if that's the real scenario. That's just kind of what I'm interpreting from, all the publicly available news there. It's pretty crazy. Around this point, Ben floats a theory for why the police keep covering for these guys. They're all Mormon!
I got a phone call, and this call was from Brian, the collector's son, who got all their stuff stolen. And he has a theory of what might be going on here.
Yeah, the cops down there are definitely all in with the Mormon community, and being the Bricks and Minifigs is part of that and worth millions. I would not doubt that they have donated hefty sums to the Mormon church, of which all the cops are probably a part of.
This definitely tracks. Mormons are all on the same side, pretty much, but it also obviously does not represent the experience that a lot of people have had with Mormons. For example, I've had a lot of really good experiences with Mormons, especially after my very critical video of the history of the Mormon church, in which I didn't really pull any punches, to be honest, because I don't really give a f. But they were extremely nice, and they've got my heart a little bit. I'm gonna be real with you guys. The Mormons, they have my heart. Are they Christian? I don't know. I don't think it really matters. They seem to be devoted to Christ regardless. Sure, they didn't let black people into the church until the 1970s. That's a classic ex-Mormon point. Anyways, this sort of makes sense. The Mormons have their own very unique cabal. A lot of them work very closely in business together, and they back each other up. And they also just back normal people up, by the way, as well. Just like on average, they just seem to be really nice and helpful. But McNeff, Johnson, Best, the responding cops, and even the judge are all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is the Mormon Church.
Brandon Best, Joshua Johnson, and Amen, the CEO, are all super Mormon. Like, the CEO even went to the Mormon University. And when I looked up all the police officers who were treating me unfairly, they were all Mormon too.
And they're all operating on their home turf in Utah, which, by the way, I dropped the video when I was driving through Utah. I was like, looking around, I was scared a little bit, not really. And people already really like trolling Mormons, so they ran with it and they called it the Mormon Mafia. And we'll come back to that as well. So then Bricks and Minifigs sues. Reckless Ben and Brian are sued both for what they call a coordinated campaign to extort, racketeer, and defame the company. They fire a cease and desist at Patreon demanding Ben's page comes down, and Patreon's CEO, for the first time ever, takes a stand, reads it, and refuses because there are no real grounds.
So after an extensive review and investigation by Patreon's trust and safety team, we have in fact, unfortunately determined that Bricks and Minifigs can stuff it. We're keeping Ben's page up. And if Bricks and Minifigs doesn't like that, they can sue us. Patreon out.
So that's kind of epic, but I feel like Patreon's CEO could have stood up for quite a few more things, to be honest with you guys. I feel like freedom of speech is really important beyond just the Lego thing. But anyways, corporate starts floating around genuinely unhinged claims, like their factoid that Ben threatened to burn the building down, bomb it, and shoot the people inside of it.
Basically, this Bricks and Minifigs company has nonstop been making fake bomb threats, fake fire threats, fake murder threats in my name that I'm going to murder them. The only problem is, obviously, these are all fake threats. I would never do something like that.
Timeline here is the part that gets a little bit confusing. There are 2 arrests. The first when he first tried to serve Johnson, and the second at the Airbnb. They didn't all happen in the middle of this, scandal going on a national scale. They happened back on March 10th and 11th, months before the story was even released and went viral in late May. Officially, Ben was charged with stalking and targeted residential picketing over the run-ins at Johnson's house, and Johnson got a protective order against him on May 20th. If you stack on disorderly conduct and trespassing, and Ben is suddenly looking up to 5 years in prison. He said there's a no bail warrant out for him, which is why, but by his account, he is now in Mexico, staying ahead of it until something is done about the police in American Fork. So he's literally fled.
The only thing the police department could tell me is that I do have a warrant, but this time the judge approved it that I will have no bail. And I am now a physical threat to Josh, the person the police are protecting. So basically, at any moment now, I could be arrested without bail for some mystery crime. There really is only one thing that I can do now.
Well, I'm in Mexico now, and the American police have no authority here.
He should have had his court date by the time that we're recording this, but instead, he's out of the country, represented pro bono by lawyers who say his civil rights are being trampled, which I would tend to agree, not as a lawyer or anything, but I feel like, man, you just gotta be able to talk about stuff and expose people for doing stuff bad, and they shouldn't be able to manipulate the law to f you over. It's just that simple. There needs to be more integrity. We need more integrity. We need more integrity from all sides, all right, guys? And it can't just be when it's your side that we need integrity to help. It has to be just integrity and unity as a whole. I see a lot of people coming together over this, and I really like it. That's why I wanted to cover it on my channel, is because it's like, everybody can agree on this. There's a very small group of people who are like, well, no, maybe he shouldn't have done that. It's like, okay, you wanna steal from an old guy then? Okay, then f you, you're an idiot. You're just a idiot, you're a rabble rouser. And yeah, what you say is meaningless. And you've seen a lot of footage in this video. Now, I apologize, it's a lot of story. There's body cam footage. On May 29th, the American Fork Police Department put out its own statement insisting it only released the body cam footage to be transparent, and that it was enforcing stalking and harassment law, not taking side in a business dispute. The chief of the police, Cameron Paul, said the same thing. Nothing to do with Legos. This is not an endorsement of anyone. The problem is the footage doesn't back them even remotely. Chunks of the video and the audio were redacted, and on the parts you can actually see, the officers are very clearly deferring to Johnson, Best, and McNeff.
So this is the original footage I got with the redactions in, and this is the new unredacted footage. I'm lining them up, and I'm gonna keep only the redacted parts to see what they were actually saying.
It doesn't take a trained eye to understand that their official statement is in dissonance with the actual video footage, which is classic. But in Ben's own response, he's very fair about it, I would say, a lot fairer than the average person. He says he doesn't even think the officer was trying to dislocate his shoulder. It was an old injury that already made it prone to popping out, but either way, his shoulder was dislocated. What Ben cannot get past is why SWAT was sent to the Airbnb over Legos in the first place. And the answer, which is buried in the official statement, is that the Airbnb's owner told police the sets were there. So a department that officially swears it has no stake in the Salem dispute went and raided a man over stolen Legos tied to that exact dispute. I have no idea. That seems really confusing, but maybe we're missing some context. Then on June 1st, they redacted the footage of Ben's arrest, specifically scrubbing the parts that backed his side right before the chief gave his statement. And one more thing the leaked footage showed is that the Airbnb owner personally knew one of the arresting officers, a guy named Adamson. Adamson, Amon, Joseph, Brigham. Mormons! Get you some of this, Mormons. How about that? Twilight Fusion, Echelon collab, Twilight Fusion. You know, it's not coffee. I think that it is from green coffee beans, so it's not, I don't think it's Mormon friendly. If you do want to try some candy though, I have my own small business. It's called Sour Boys. We have delicious real fruit gummies. We make 4 new flavors every single month. The flavors come from natural sources, and we have 35% less sugar than a leading brand like Sour Patch Kids. Come on now. We had belts for a long time. We're reworking our formula and our machinery and where we're gonna actually make them at, because of the, these are gluten-free. The belts have a gluten allergy, so we need to separate them completely so we can take the next step into being a more official business. But either way, go try some Sour Boys at sour.gg. It means the world to me. It's one of my favorite things that I do on a consistent basis, and I get to do it with my wife and best friends and family. And you guys are the reason that it's gotten this far. So anyways, thank you to my own business for sponsoring this video. Go to sour.gg. Now the footage, how did it even get out? Here's how it got out. A Reddit user found a full archive of the unredacted body and dash cam from Ben's arrest sitting on the department's own records, which was just dropped online with no press release, no announcement, no nothing or anything like that. Ben says it was a hack, but the department insists that they released it on purpose, which would be a really bizarre way to do it. But either way, it is out now and it is bad because in it, Johnson insists over and over that he is the victim, that he is being stalked, that there's no lawsuit, that none of this is on him, and he brings up his scared kid. He says it's illegal to impersonate a process server, which is a person who handles you a legal document, and the cops nod along the whole time.
Do you think a process server would show up with a guy that's been harassing a YouTuber to serve papers in Utah?
Josh knows that if he gets served these papers, it's going to be really bad for him. And at this point, it seems like he's willing to make up any story he can to get us arrested before he gets served these papers.
So why are the American Fork Police this locked in on the side of a Lego franchise? Ben's got the answer, but to understand why any of this got big enough to even matter, you have to understand genuinely how massive this has become over the last few weeks. Basically, everyone has heard of this story now, and the single biggest reason is because of Moist Critical, real name Charlie, one of the largest commentary channels on the platform who picked it up and put a megaphone on it. But also, Ben's video was going very viral off the bat. Also, Coffeezilla is about to post a main channel video on it, I believe. But from there, it went fully mainstream with major outlets, international coverage, and so on, which is genuinely strange because Ben has done far more dangerous work than this with like McKamey Manor and Lucifer Valentine. Those are way higher risk investigations. This one is somehow the one that got him arrested, injured, and chased out of the country. And it's about Legos. Are you tugging me right now? Are you pulling on me a little too hard? Are you yoink? Are you jelking me? Are you jelking me right now, dude? After the footage leaked, Bricks and Minifigs posted again their version, their original story, walking everyone back to where they just started. Nobody really cares where they started, to be fair, but what matters is what their own timeline pretty much owns up to. Up to 2023, it lines up with everyone else's, and by their own records, Brian was owed at least $100,000 before the consignment split ever even enters the math. They tried to move to pin everything on the previous owners of the franchise, Crystal, claiming she actually owed them $200,000 in unpaid royalties, so they simply took the business instead, which is conveniently why Brandon Best showed up at night for the keys. And they still claim there was never any consignment conversation, which we have footage of, you freaks. Like, what is the deal with that?
Well, that's not true. That doesn't exist. That's AI. He put that through Google Gemini. He put that through Grok, I'll bet. He retweeted one of Elon's tweets and he put that through Grok, I bet.
Are you jelking me? Then things start to get a little pointed, I guess you could say. I don't really have any points around here, but Bricks and Minifigs starts arguing the footage everyone saw is only partial and that the full version would show Crystal handed some of the collection back to Brian. So in other words, Brian secretly has the Legos. Now Brian says that's flatly untrue, that he has nothing that they're talking about or asking about, but it's about what that accusation sets up. Corporate says Brian has the sets. Ben drives to Utah. The Airbnb owner tells police that Ben has the sets. A judge signs a warrant. SWAT raids Ben, finds nothing because there was nothing to find. So yeah, the department that isn't taking sides is the one that kicks in, the door to find the Legos. I don't know if they kicked in a door. I don't want to be sued for libel or slander or whatever And now CEO Eamon McNeff suddenly wants to talk. The same man who said he'd give everything back if Brian would just apologize now wants to sit down, go through the spreadsheets and the point of sale data and make him whole, while still pinning the entire thing on Crystal. He even dangles dropping Brian as a defendant from the lawsuit, then makes sure to mention that Brian's raised $350,000 on his GoFundMe. Which brings us back to the Mormon connection, the Mormon conspiracy, all right? I apologize, friendly, kind to Mormons who love Bricks and Minifigs and thinks that old people shouldn't be scammed. I know there's a lot of you out there, all right? I've seen the clips. The pro-reckless Ben, it seems like a Mormon thing to not do this. It seems like a Mormon thing to do good business. I do business with Mormons and they're good people. Just saying. At least I think they're Mormons. Oh, I never asked. I just assume everyone who's nice is Mormon. Literally. The bones of the Mormon connection are just the facts. Bricks and Minifigs is headquartered in Utah. McNeff is LDS. So are Best, Johnson, the responding cops, and the judge. McNeff and Johnson, it turns out, go back more than 20 years, and two of them served as Mormon missionaries together in 2004. A couple of teenagers preaching side by side. American Fork itself is about 80 to 85% Mormon, and that's the soil the Mormon Mafia theory grows in, my friends. So whatever leaked the footage, a hack or an accident, it pretty much flipped everything on its head for Bricks and Minifigs. The same day, June 4th, corporate announced it was cutting ties completely with the Salem franchise and with Brennan Best and Joshua Johnson, completely done with them. They tied it directly to the investigation into Brian's collection, which they still frame as an unauthorized private side deal corporate never knew about, but corporate, according to the footage we have, corporate did know. And McNeff finally goes on record, he said, "We've been asking for documentation for a long time. We'd asked Mr. Mansell and others and not received enough to give us a clear picture until recently. Thanks to internal and external operations, assistants, and those who continue to stand with us, we finally have enough to proceed with a resolution." That's my best Utah accent. And then he said straight to Brian, "We continue our offer to sit down with you and prepare to discuss dropping the lawsuit against you. Let's go through the spreadsheets and point of sale data together and ensure you're made whole." So listen to that or whatever, read that again, because it seems like a whole lot of bullshit to me. It seems like there's at least a couple of things in there that smell like bullshit. They claim they never had enough information after Brian spent over a year trying to get his property back from them. Then there were the body cam leaks, and suddenly they have enough information just, magically, and also suddenly they're being gracious just magically. That's kind of weird. They're still dangling a sit down to discuss dropping the lawsuit that they chose to file over spreadsheets that they control and could also have altered, by the way. And, I'm not implying that they did, but they could have. They could have. They could have. Everything seems a little too strange when it's in their court. It seems a little funky. Makes me want to run around tugging on it. I'm sorry. I'll stop saying that. But that is unconfirmed rumor, not fact. As of recording this, the more information could come out. So, how does this end? Right now, it doesn't end at all. Ben is being represented from Mexico in absentia, and his civil trial with Bricks and Minifigs is still living and alive. And even after publicly offering to drop Brian from the lawsuit, that same lawsuit is trying to claw back the money raised around all of this, an accounting and disgorgement of profits reaching the GoFundMe, the Patreon, the ad revenue, all of that, in which that fund had crossed $450,000, and as of this recording, it is gone. The GoFundMe for the Mansells has been pulled down entirely, reportedly tied to that same court order with the donation set to be refunded. So whether Bricks and Minifigs is some small cog in a big, evil Mormon cabal machine running on stolen Legos, we'll probably never get a full answer. There's a lawsuit court order in place. Ben can't even talk about it anymore without risking the case and the money raised for the Mansells along with it. And there's a ton of collateral damage with the entire thing. I mean, Bricks and Minifigs is a corporate entity with a bunch of franchisees. Not all the franchisees are represented by the corporate entity and vice versa. It sucks because it's such a small world, and there's probably not a lot of good coming to the franchisees who own these stores around. It really sucks. It's a bad scenario. I wish they would have just sucked it up and solved it immediately. I get digging your heels in and using your legal weight or whatever, I guess, but come on, man. It's not the Mormon way, I don't think. But yeah, Bricks and Minifig stores across the country, just completely ordinary, unconnected franchises that have nothing to do with any of this, are getting buried in harassment and death threats. One in Sacramento had to shut down for an entire week, and Ben himself has told people to knock it off. The franchisees aren't the villains, but obviously people get lost in the sauce. People is crazy. Big and Minifig! Ah! Maybe you shouldn't put that in the video. Now, you might notice I look slightly different, and I'm wearing the same clothes, but I still look kind of different. That's because I recorded this after this story is developing. Coffee dropped an hour-long video on June 10th, 4 million views in one day, and he didn't just react and regurgitate like what I'm doing. He got both sides on camera. He talked to CEO Eamon McNeff of Bricks and Minifigs and his brother and COO Matt McNeff, and what he found makes things even more complicated, guys. unfortunately. Firstly, the value. Working from Crystal's own inventory sheet, he put the collection at around $107,000, not $200,000. And when he pressed Ben on where the $200,000 number came from, Ben admitted it was a nice even number that will grab attention, which is totally true. So, the primary figure driving the entire national insane story is slightly exaggerated. So Bricks and Minifigs doesn't owe the old man $200,000, but only $107,000. Okay, I've changed my mind. They're the good guys now. Just kidding, by the way. There's even more information to that. More information that genuinely matters for Brian and the entire situation as a whole. Coffeezilla traced the money through an audit, and about $24,000 of the collection sold before the takeover, and Brian was paid about $17,000 of that. But the store's sales data showed way more moved through than ever made it onto the books. 98 items were just sitting in layaway that were never reconciled, and after all the accounting, only between 10 and 20,000 was genuinely unaccounted for. So stolen, right? Not $200,000, 10 and 20,000 was still gone and unaccounted for, basically stolen, effectively, virtually, right? I don't know for sure, but it seems like it's unaccounted for, which is not good, because that's usually what you say when something has been yoinked from you and you don't know where it is. It's unaccounted for. Because I don't think the Mansells lost it. But to be clear, this is not a gotcha. None of this is a gotcha at all. Coffeezilla figured Brian is likely owed somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in proceeds that did sell that he was never paid for. So the genuine unaccounted pile, the theft pile, is pretty small, but the owed pile is gigantic. So say $100,000. That's still terrifying, and that's still horrendous, and that's still evil. Through the interviews Coffee did, Bricks and Minifigs did themselves absolutely zero favors. They claimed no U-Haul at the store on takeover day. Coffeezilla enhanced the footage using his high-tech computer systems, and you can clearly see that there's a U-Haul. They claimed that they were never sent a master spreadsheet, but he read the file's metadata out loud. It was created on Bricks and Minifigs' corporate account. The CEO's answer was, "This is the first I've seen that this spreadsheet was created by Crystal." So Coffeezilla's investigation leans on the side of mismanagement and sloppy bookkeeping and a corporate parent that has chosen to deflect and dodge responsibility at most opportunities. Basically, they've chosen to look like a bunch of assholes, essentially. He couldn't prove anyone stole anything. There's still a bunch unaccounted for and a bunch unpaid, but it isn't just like a cut and dry Mormon Mafia situation, all right? Unfortunately, that would be way more fun. But what about the lawsuit that Bricks and Minifigs filed? Coffee told the CEO to his face that it was ridiculous and that they should stop it and drop it and roll, and nobody knows ridiculous, stupid, idiot lawsuits better than Coffeezilla. I mean, come on, guys. So no matter what, Ben is completely right that Brian was stiffed 50 to 80 grand plus another 10 to 20 that's genuinely unaccounted for is real money that a family never saw. The 200,000 number seems to be fairly exaggerated, and they definitely did not steal everything. Best case scenario, Bricks and Minifigs comes out looking evasive and like a bunch of assholes and just being bad at telling the truth on camera, but obviously being dodgy and bad at business is not the same as an organized crime theft ring run by the Mormons, to be honest. So yeah, we've seen what I just said repeated everywhere, including by Ben. Plenty of outlets have reported on this, but thanks to updates since this video was first recorded, we know now that the story went out as Bricks and Minifigs never showed, so Ben won by default, and the store closed the next day to dodge paying with all the small claims cases. But that isn't exactly what happened. Filing for default isn't really winning. A lot of those small claims cases just got dismissed. They had wrong defendants or they were never properly served. Coffeezilla and the legal site Tech Dirt both walked through it. The store did close right in the middle of all this, which is a certain tell and very sketchy, but there was no clean courtroom layup. There was a bit of factual outrunning there for sure. Another update for the American Fork Police Department and all the servings and everything like that. Chief Cameron Paul said this was not a one-paper serving, it was a multi-day pattern. They say on a March 8th delivery that Ben admitted a rubber duck delivery at Johnson's house had been staged and that he planned to forge a document so he could be trespassed off the property. And they say Johnson, not corporate, called the police saying Ben was going to shoot someone. Obviously, it's just total bullshit. Then on the heroin, the breath test came back at 0. The dog did alert. They searched. They didn't find shit. Nothing was planted. And on the dislocated shoulder, the officer says that Ben tensed and moved first. Of course, He says that, and that Ben never complained of pain through booking and all their, molesting him, and that the x-ray Ben posted was of the wrong shoulder. But either way, Ben himself walked it back and said it was a pre-existing injury, so Also, a Utah defense attorney with zero dog in the fight, a fellow by the name of Steve Burton, actually thinks that Ben has real points and that the traffic stop will almost certainly be ruled unconstitutional and the search warrant was probably invalid, which that is very serious. But the same guy says the real fight is over Utah's super broad harassment laws and a sketchy warrant. So not really a massive, big, epic Mormon conspiracy, which I was hoping, guys. That's what I was praying for. So parts of how the cops handled Ben look very bad and may get thrown out, and parts of what Ben did look like exactly what those laws are sort of written to cover the harassment stuff. So both can be true at the exact same time. And one more correction, the line that Brian has nothing left is not accurate. Crystal returned a chunk of the figurines to him, over 230 minifigures and a dozen small sets, including a Cloud City set, which is really cool. Separately, Brian had made his own side deal, selling about $12,000 of Legos to a buyer that showed up in the records as M&R Productions. That does not make Brian a villain at all, by the way. None of this makes any of the good guys the bad guys. It's just there's always more context, obviously. Brian is still an old man's son who is owed a dick shit load of real money, but they definitely didn't take every last brick. Also need to pump the brakes a little bit on the Mormon Mafia part, because it does, honestly, as much as I would love to just see the Mormon Mafia, that would be so awesome and so funny. It doesn't really hold up. There's definitely some, church stuff, levers, exercising control. That's going to be objective. Any human institution where there's a bunch of people in like this weird sort of brotherhood, they're definitely going to do stuff. So I'm not going to say there's not a Mormon Mafia, but the Mormons being an organized crime ring that just steals Legos and shit, I don't think so. I don't think that. There's not a lot of evidence there. Coffeezilla, who did a lot of investigating and provided a lot of evidence for all of us, he came down on bad bookkeeping, not a church plot. And plenty of LDS community outlets also push back, which, of course they would. We investigated ourselves and found ourselves not guilty, which I don't think that there's a Mormon Mafia, by the way. So one more correction immediately after stating what I just stated. You may have heard from me that the GoFundMe was taken down and refunded. It was pulled June 9th, which is when I recorded this, but it was restored the next day and it's sitting around $457,000, and Bricks and Minifigs has gone on record denying that they ever tried to seize it. Quote, "At no point did we make any legal attempt to seize the Mansell family GoFundMe account." So nobody's grabbing the donations today. But even though they said that on record, their lawsuit asks for disgorgement of profits, and that explicitly reaches the GoFundMe, the Patreon, and the ad money from all this stuff. So if they win, it's all on the table. So that seems like they do want it. So I'm not really sure what the deal is really with that. Disgorgement is a great fun word. That's a pretty cool deal there. Comment down below what your most favorite great fun word is. There's also a restraining order signed May 28th by a judge named Tony, ordering Ben to take down the videos and stay 1,000 yards from the owners. That is the gag that's been put out, and that's why Ben put out the 102-second clip saying he can't release part 3 or even name the company without risking jail. There's a hearing in late June, plus a separate criminal date around July 1st. And at the end of the day, the company sucks balls. I mean, let's be real, guys. It's not a purely clean morality play, no proven $200,000 crazy heist, no insane proven Mormon Mafia, no epic clean courtroom wins, no cleanliness really anywhere at all. But what there is an 83-year-old man and his family that are genuinely owed between $50,000 and let's say $100,000, because the 10 to 20 unaccounted for, that they were owed that. They were never paid. And a company, a corporate entity that is run by Mormons, instead of just cutting a check, deflected, contradicted itself, dug in, dug out, dug back in, dug back out, it's really confusing. And then they sued the very people it says that it wants to make whole. So hopefully they retract all that. You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to be angry about that. The boring best case scenario is that it's terrible bookkeeping, corporate ass covering, and aggressive bullying lawsuits from a corporate entity. Still really bad if you ask me. Still a terrible, completely optional look. And it sucks because there's real franchise owners who aren't pieces of shit who were getting death threats. Store in Sacramento had to close for a week. Even Ben told his people to knock off all the, I guess, the death threats. So be furious, but at the right things, I guess. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed, press the like button. I'll see you in the next video.